legislative plan, the plan that we used to develop all of our laws, was one of our other key projects. We would not have been effectively self-governing. In fact, we would have no authority to operate if we did not have a set of laws in place on effective date that provided us with the legislative backbone we needed to be able to be a self-governing First Nation. We enacted 23 laws on effective date. Another set of them, naming a few more, would be the Government Organization Act, Property Taxation Act, Traditional Territory and Boundary Commission Act, Land Act, Land Use Planning Act, Development Act, and many others, and that we are currently now using to operate with. These laws set out an effective framework with which Tsawwassen operates as a self-governing nation. But other First Nations will be able to look at our legislation and use it as appropriate to their situation. All of our laws are available on our website at www.tsawwassenfirstnation.com. Tsawwassen's out there. And some are important in how it relates to employment. Our Government Organization Act sets out how our employees' rights, expectations of people like our Chief Administrative Officer and our Director of Finance. Those senior management roles are defined in the Government Organization Act. Those give us the tools so that we can effectively run our First Nation. These laws, though, they work with a concurrent law model negotiated in the treaty. Recognizing that we have a skills gap here, we partnered with SFU, the First Nations Governance Center, KESO, and various other experts, including a third-generation retired legislative drafter from the province. In a tremendously short period of time, we drafted and considered policy. We drafted legislative instructions and legislation and sought the input of a review committee made up of staff and advisors, a community advisory committee that was open to all members and still is, and council. And it really worked well. It was an effective way to make sure that we went through a number of different levels to see if our laws were meeting the expectations of our community, meeting our expectations of our council, and meeting the expectations and obligations of our laws, of our Constitution, pardon me. I have to admit, it didn't really hit me what we were starting to accomplish until I saw the first draft bill, the first draft law. But it really was a tremendous, and it still is a tremendous accomplishment. I consider some of our laws real benchmarks, particularly our land laws, in relation to land management and disposition of lands. I think we created a regime that is so much more advanced than the Indian Act land management regime, and it's already working. Well, we had to seek outside help to fill some of the legal and policy positions in the course of the first two types of projects, building the treaty, building blocks, and focusing on implementation. We were fortunate to have members that had institutional knowledge from having either worked in our administration or on our treaty teams. This knowledge was a real asset for us. These members also helped with the analysis of various policy and program options, as they had a real strong sense of what options were viable in our community. But they are also key in helping us to plan the many community consultation and community votes that we held prior to effective date. In this regard, members with event planning and other coordination and logistical skills were certainly in demand. We have a ratification treaty vote. We had held a ratification vote for the treaty itself, as well as we had a vote for our land use plan. 4 of our acts, the Land Act, the Land Use Planning Act, the Membership Act, and the Election Act, as well as the Constitution. This involved organizing votes and a number of consultation meetings, some family meetings as well, to ensure that the members were well informed. Despite the core team of members, as I noted, we required outside help in certain areas. We required individuals with skills in finance and accounting to assist in the development of our new budget processes, lawyers and policy analysts to understand legal implications of treaties and the impacts of policy decisions. These positions were important in the treaty process as they provided our community and elected officials with the information they required while making decisions. These 3 areas are of real value to us and could be areas of education that you and your members may want to focus on. The third type of project was capacity building. While many believe that these projects are nice to have as opposed to needs to have, we try to accomplish as many of them as possible. We need to build our organization and the internal capacity of the organization, because how we work post-treaty is substantially different than pre-treaty. One important project here is strategic and operational planning linked to budget making. Under treaty, TFN is suddenly able to make its own decisions about funding. But it needs to be able to set the priorities about that funding. Every community meeting we have, people want us to spend money on capital infrastructure, more education, more health. There's only so much money. You've got to be able to set those priorities, and you have to have guidelines and community input on how to set those priorities. So we use that information to make decisions about what programs get funding to accomplish those priorities, because now we can. Now we have the power and the policies and the tools to allocate more money to the post-secondary, to revise our policies to meet our needs, to meet our members' needs. We are no longer restricted because we have that ability. This requires a new process that TFN does not currently have. It also required individuals with financial credentials, and as such presented another education area that was in demand for us. Another important capacity building type of project is setting up an economic development structure so that we can minimize the risks to Wausau government itself as we undertake development projects that could have significant financial risk attached to them. Over time, we hope, well actually we expect, we have to have these developments move forward, that the Economic Development Corporation will push a number of developments forward and secure employment opportunities for members as each part of the deal. Most of these jobs so far have been hard hat jobs, but we remain committed not only to providing a variety of employment jobs, but also providing members with the educational supports that they require to access and succeed in those jobs. Recently, we hired a member to the Dev Corps. He's a member that's gone through the educational system, and we have has a bachelor's degree. So we've got people that are already moving into that direction. And now that we've got an Economic Development Corporation where a non-member is the head of, we have somebody that's going to be starting there, hopefully moving through the ranks, and then we'll be managing that Dev Corps for us ourselves. A third important project involved with our capacity efforts is the development of a dispute resolution process to ensure that we can operate consistently as a government, treat everyone fairly, and move past our differences. With the establishment of this process, our Judicial Council is now operational. This, we feel, is important from a governance perspective, but it is also providing one of our members with a great career opportunity. One of our members is currently getting a great deal of training from a provincial legal clerk to facilitate the running of our judicial court. Job shadowing has been set up so that she can go down to the BC court system and see how that they're running their court system. They develop a manual together. She's going through developing the forms, the process, and then we have the Judicial Council themselves that are mentoring her. So this member is building a great deal of capacity through the very need that we have to follow our dispute resolution process. And in fact, a career path that she didn't know that she was interested in, and we think that we found something for her, and she's moving through it quite nicely.